A former New York prosecutor, once charged with working on the case against former President Donald Trump, said in a very explosive resignation letter that he is guilty of these crimes. Now, this resignation letter from Mark Pomerantz, who was part of the Manhattan DA effort to go after Donald Trump for financial crimes related to these assets, meaning the valuation of his assets when it comes to tax evasion or getting loans, things like that. Well, that effort, by the way, fell back. Well, it basically fell through. That case. Now, the original district attorney was Cyrus Vance Jr., and he was basically pursuing a case, a criminal case, against Donald Trump related to those assets. Now, in comes in January a new district attorney, Alvin Bragg, who, look, ran on actually more progressive priorities, but apparently decided not to press this case against Donald Trump. Interesting. So now that led to Pomerantz and another lawyer, Carrie Doon, to resign. Now, originally, of course, Alvin Bragg was reportedly on board. Like, okay, yeah, let's go forward. Let's get all the evidence of the case. Let's do a review. Let's do all this stuff. Let's be aggressive and go after Donald Trump. And then after some meetings and things like that, that began to change. They began to cut out, these Pomerantz and Doon from these important meetings. And of course, the whole thing just kind of fell apart. Now, the New York Times just shared that letter. So let me read some of it to you. Now, he says, I fear that your decision means that Mr. Trump will not be held fully accountable for his crimes. I believe that Donald Trump is guilty of numerous felony violations of the penal law in connection with the preparation and use of his annual statements of financial condition. His financial statements were false, and he has a long history of fabricating information related to his personal finances and lying about his assets to banks, the national media, counterparties, and many others, including the American people. The team that has been investigating Mr. Trump harbors no doubt about whether he committed crimes. He did. So, look, this is Pomerantz saying, guilty, 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 lock him up, guilty, go after him already. Now, there's more. He said, you have reached the decision not to go forward with the grand jury presentation and not to seek criminal charges at the present time. So I think that is important to point out. At the present time. But then said, the investigation has been suspended indefinitely. Of course, that is your decision to make. I do not question your authority to make it, and I accept that you made it sincerely. Okay. So now, look, the office of Alvin Bragg says, no, it hasn't been suspended. We're just waiting on additional evidence. We're waiting on somebody to flip. And we just don't have the case here, but we're still working on it, and we can't give you any details. So, look, again, this letter was released a few months ago, whereas the response here to this resignation letter came out earlier. All right, so now, Pomerantz's letter continues. He said, a decision made in good faith may nevertheless be wrong. I believe that your decision not to prosecute Donald Trump now and on the existing record is misguided and completely contrary to the public interest. I fear that your decision means that Mr. Trump will not be fully held accountable for his crimes. I have worked too hard as a lawyer and for too long now to become a passive participant in what I believe to be a grave failure of justice. I therefore resign from my position as a special assistant district attorney effective immediately. Now, that spokesperson for Bragg, Daniel Philson, told the New York Times that no, we have not paused the investigation. No, the investigation is ongoing. In fact, here's a quote. A team of experienced prosecutors is working every day to follow the facts and the law. There is nothing more that we can do or should say at this juncture about an ongoing investigation. Okay, The Times also noted that Bragg had told aides that the inquiry could move forward if a new piece of evidence is unearthed or if a Trump Organization insider decides to flip on Mr. Trump. Other prosecutors in that office saw that prospect, of course, as fanciful. So, look, there's a lot to get into. Okay, so this is a very, very big, very consequential case that's happening in New York. These are felonies, right? See, these are serious crimes. Now, I think, you're going to ask me my personal opinion, I think he's guilty as hell. Of course. Now, that said, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a prosecutor, okay? And so I don't have the evidence in front of me. Bragg says, I don't think I have the evidence either. He doesn't think that Michael Cohen, has credibility as a witness. I've said before, Michael Cohen is a snake. But at this point, I actually believe Michael Cohen over anyone else, over Donald Trump specifically. And that said, this strikes me as a very, very strange decision by Mr. Bragg. After all, it's not as if he's never touched Trump before. Bragg oversaw the successful case against the Trump Foundation launched by the Attorney General Barbara Underwood, which again saw the Trump family, the Trump kids specifically, banned from being able to create or be a part of any charity group till the end of time, at least in New York. And so, I mean, he went after the family, and so I don't know, I don't quite understand why Bragg is not going forward. Maybe, look, there's a lot of people that disagree with Bragg's assessment that at this point, there's not enough evidence. I don't know what they have on Donald Trump. Certainly Cyrus Vance Jr. disagreed. He was pushing for the case, but did not go after him before he retired. And that's very, 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 very questionable too as well. So I don't know. Cyrus Vance Jr., we know from a New York Times investigation earlier, article that talked about this case and why it fell apart is, Cyrus Vance Jr. had aides that pushed back saying, we're going too fast. You need to slow down. We need to collect more evidence. There's a pretty high bar here in proving fraud. Isn't it funny that there's a very high bar for fraud when it comes to allegedly rich people, but when it comes to poor people, well, I mean, they really, really go after it. Maybe it's because poor people don't fight back. And Donald Trump has been fighting incredibly viciously and vigorously, and has the entire Republican Party funding his legal fees. So understand that you have a political party that is paying the legal fees of Donald Trump to protect himself from stuff like this. That's insane. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. But anyway, legal experts did weigh in on this one. In fact, here's MSNBC legal outlet Jill Wine-Banks tweeting this: "No question anymore. Bragg stopped indictment of Trump. He must explain. And I want to hear from Pomerantz." Yes. Look, I agree with that. Richard Signorelli was a little bit tougher. He's a former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Here's what he wrote in a series of tweets. Quote, "From his first day in office, Bragg has made one mistake after another, literally jeopardizing public safety. His incompetence in office has made him unreasonably risk-averse and cowardly with regard to holding Trump accountable for his career of criminality. Shameful. We ended up electing as Manhattan DA the absolute worst candidate of all, cowardly, incompetent, and a danger to public safety. I apologize again for having supported him." Signorelli added this, quote, "Dear Bragg, if there's one mistake that you make, which will be unforgivable and unforgettable to us in Manhattan, it will be not holding Trump accountable for his criminality, guaranteed. You can still fix this. Make your peace with Pomerantz and Dune and indict this piece of shit sociopath." God damn. He is very, very clear on that. Very angry, very strong statement. Attorney Robert J. Nadal also said that New York is going to have to demand an explanation over Bragg's decision not to move forward with the prosecution. Quote, within weeks of assuming office, he overrode both his predecessor and line prosecutors who had all concluded Donald Trump was guilty of multiple felonies and decided to prosecute him. So again, these are legal experts that have weighed in. My opinion, of course, you know my opinion. Donald Trump did this, absolutely. You look at his career, you look at his pattern, you look at his record of outrageous lies. Of course, of course. Now, that said, and I'm trying to be super, super fair, super charitable here, because maybe he does have, maybe he does believe, I don't know if I have enough evidence. If I'm going to go for Donald Trump, Teflon Don, then I want to make sure that I've got a airtight case, completely airtight. And of course, I could understand if the guy's waiting for somebody to flip, like Alan Weisselberg, right? So maybe they're putting the screws to Weisselberg. Maybe they're hoping that that guy flips or anyone else in the Trump organization, although Weisselberg, of course, is like the biggest target. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And so, look, me believing him, believing that he is guilty as hell, me thinking that there is absolutely enough evidence. I'm not a lawyer, though. I don't have that power. I don't have that ability to make a case. And certainly, I don't have the smarts to make that kind of case. And I'm just saying, and I'm not trying to make excuses for this lawyer, but I'm saying, like, I don't know what he knows. I don't know what the DA knows. Nonetheless, I'm going to say that I disagree with his assessment. I disagree. Plainly put. I do want accountability. I do want justice. But I do want him to make sure that they dot their I's, cross their T's, and bring forward the strongest possible case that blows everyone away. I don't know if they have that. And if they do have that, by the way, and they're not going for it, and DA Bragg is not going to push that button, then I hope that there's absolute hell to pay. Hell to pay. And so, yes, you can call this cowardice. It's totally fair. You could, point it as rough tenure as New York AG, dealing with his own issues. But at the same time, you would think that pushing the button on Trump and going after him, well, that would help his political prospects in New York, where you have, look, New York wants Trump's head on a pike. So it just doesn't make any sense to me why he's not going forward with this, especially because it probably would help his political career. So again, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I'm not in the guy's head. Now, these other lawyers, however, again, you have these experts that are very gung-ho about this. In fact, Dune had said before, yeah, if he does an indictment of Trump and he wants me to come back and help, sign me up. I'm there. I'm ready. I'm ready to do the case. So I don't know. Look, just, the last thing I'm just going to reiterate here. If Bragg, if Bragg has the evidence but was too cowardly to put it forward, whether it be based on I'm afraid of the backlash here, I don't know. I'm afraid, or I don't have any confidence in my case or anything like that, and decided to keep his powder dry, even though there actually is enough evidence, and I believe there is, to take down Donald Trump, but didn't do it. Again, I hope there is absolute hell to pay and this guy loses his job. I hope that's not the case. There are other things about Bragg that I actually, at least on paper, was a kind of agreement. Like, keeping, putting less people in prison, that's generally a good thing. You're making sure you have more rehabilitation, etc. But again, I just don't know what this is about. And it makes me very concerned that whatever reason it would be, you have somebody who is a career criminal that might get away with it once again. And that would be disastrous. Yeah, Ravaging Wolverine points out Bragg's off to a bad start, lots of bad press. Yeah, and so I go into the story and I look into Bragg and I look into, why people are mad at him, and it was these sentencing memos, right? Which portray him as being soft on crime. And I'm like, soft on crime. And then, you see the news today and you see a lot of the reaction is, well, yeah, I guess he is really, really soft on crime. But I'm not somebody who's into the broken windows policing. I'm not, somebody who thinks that we should be super, super hard on crime, because obviously, of course, we should do, something about to make sure people aren't openly criminals, walking around, brandishing guns and things like that, and doing robberies, etc. That those people should get some prison time. At the same time, there is incarceration. There's too much incarceration, I think, in this country for ridiculous things like nonviolent drug offenses and things like that, and sentencing issues. And so he comes in and he basically runs as a reformer. But then here's this, and it just makes me think that it could be a possibility that some of this bad press and some of these attacks on Trump or on his handling of the Trump case, because we don't know what's actually going on, might just be politically opportune attacks by people who disagree with his more lenient sentencing. So it is a weird, interesting conversation. There's a lot more nuance in this, but at the same time, I really hope his, I like the fact that he's going to be a little bit more lenient, but when it comes to Donald Trump, I mean, I really think that's a bad case to be lenient on. Real bad.